we're going to bring back some of our founders. So Paula Selvaggio, Phil Kerber, Armando Francisco. It's Armando's birthday, so at some point in time today, we're going to sing happy birthday to Armando. This space, this room, is filled with smart people. Many people, when I first said, hey, I have this idea, we need to create this space. You're crazy. That will never happen. So I got the courage to reach out to a couple of people. One of the first people that I reached out to was Paula. Paula had always been a mentor to me. We had lunch. At the Marriott, and I'll never forget that. And I said, I have this idea. And you said, let's go. I want to help you do that. And I had very similar conversations with everyone. And the coolest thing about Cogence and where its energy comes from is you could be totally drained, not ready to have this meeting, and come to a Cogence meeting, and you're like, wow. Like just being around the energy, the people in the room. It's really powerful. So before I ask everyone to introduce themselves, I'm going to introduce the entire founders, all of us. So Penn Wolf and Ron Lawson are both retired owners from the Cleveland Clinic. Brian Swope was at Bowling Green when he was part of our founding board as the owner. Let me tell you what Brian had to say about Cogence. It was important to him because it provided depth and understanding and confirmation that his philosophies on project leadership. I think those who initially became involved in Cogence had a track record of mostly successful projects. What we were lacking and what the Cogence collaboration provided was answers to the why. By that I mean Cogence meetings allowed partners to explore and tease out ideas. Each meeting to him was like a master level class in leadership. Each meeting facilitator brought to the group evidence-based research along with interesting exercises to get everybody to know. That's from the owner's perspective. We had another owner, Walter Jones. Walter Jones sadly passed away in November after a battle with cancer. Paula was with Oswald. We had Don Dreyer. Who doesn't know Don Dreyer, right? Phil Kerber from the construction side. Trade contractors, we had Armando, happy birthday! And Vince Gargano. When he was with us, he was with OCP. We had engineers of Karpinski Engineering. Karpinski is still a very, very strong partner with Cogence. Jim Cicero is unable to be with us today, but we do have a message from him. Mike Long, his firm was purchased by IME. He has since retired. Robert Bostwick and Marge Zuzulovich with Hassenstadt. Marge has retired. And we can't forget Bonnie. Where's Bonnie? Bonnie's outside. Very early on, I knew I couldn't do... Bonnie! Bonnie has been with us from the beginning. I had said, I might have this vision, but I'm not going to be able to keep it all together. And somebody said to me, you need to reach out to Bonnie. And she's been our lifeblood from the beginning. So thank you, Bonnie, for all your work and dedication to Cogence. So let's hear from you guys. It's good to see you all, first of all. Why is Cogence important to you? Why were you a part of our group?
I don't know how to talk, you know me. I'm quiet, shy. When I had lunch with Pam and she was talking to me about this, I jumped right in because my evolution was I had my own insurance agency which focused on architects and engineers only. And back then, the market was changing. You know, architects and engineers were starting to do construction, and contractors wanted to do design. We were just a small 13-person agency, so I reached out to Oswald, who I had a long-standing relationship with. They did construction, but no design. So it was a perfect mesh where I just plopped right in, and now I could provide those services for my clients. But the interesting thing was that, you know, as I'm talking to an architect, they're blaming the engineering, and as I'm talking to engineering, they're blaming the design, and then you talk to a CM, they're blaming the A&E, but the bottom line came with all the statistics claims, because you understand that I never saw anything good, right? Nobody ever called to tell me, the project's going great, I just wanted you to know that that contract that sucked didn't matter. Right? That never happened. So the claims that we saw related to lack of communication or miscommunication. Every claim that we had involvement with came down to that. So when I'm listening to her, I'm like, I think we could really provide something here, because we're talking about high-level owners like the clinic and UH and the state of Ohio. They have no clue what you guys are agreeing to, how it impacts them. They think if they give you a bad contract, it won't matter. They have the upper hand, but the bottom line is, who really wins? Because you're gonna build in costs in your project knowing that you're gonna pay later. So they're not really getting the best outcome. So this was a huge thing for me. I absolutely love being part of it. And I think we're still the only insurance people. But you really need to pay attention to your coverage to make sure you know what's covered.
Listen, you're retired. Stop selling us insurance.
I'm just saying.
Stop selling us insurance, Paula. We don't need it. Or do
That's
we?
why I got involved. And I think what was great for me, and probably for everybody, is as you listen to people in the groups talking, they started getting the light bulb of, oh, now I understand why you pushed back on that. And it really led to better outcomes, as is exactly what we wanted. Armando
is still involved. He's still part of the executive committee.
I think we should sing happy birthday.
Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Armando.
What are you, 40?
Happy birthday to you.
Yay.
Armando is always the best dressed, by the way.
This is why I love Cogence. So Armando Francisco, Executive Vice President for Lake Erie Electric. I've been involved in this crazy business that we call construction for 32 years. Construction is very difficult to do, even when you're working with people that you really enjoy working with. Unfortunately, construction has probably declined on the way that we figure how to make it easy. It became very silo, and everybody, instead of being construction managers, became risk managers, right? We were able to protect our own interest or our company. So I think Cogence was born out of necessity. We needed a better way to understand how we can affect each other better, and how can we work together in a better setup. One of the things that I love about Cogence, and this was from the beginning, is we didn't want to be members, so we came with the name of partners. We want to be partners. So Cogence emphasized that we want to be equals, so we had to be partners. And as a contractor, one of the big things at the time was we were always called subcontractors, right? So it was about changing that mentality and became trade partners. So Cogence started changing the vision in Northeast Ohio on how we can treat each other. One of the biggest eye-openers for me was when we did the roundtable for risk. Really interesting. When you put together Cogence and you say we have architects, engineers, CMs, others like insurance and lawyers, you bring everybody's ideas and thoughts to the table, and you realize that everybody sees risk differently, and everybody sees risk at different times. And the most important thing is how we affect each other during those risks. How my way of performing the job affects others. It could be affecting the engineer or the architect or the owner, and not realizing we're doing that. So the silos that we created in this industry were creating additional risk for everybody. So that was very eye-opening to me on how, if we treat ourselves differently, if we assign the risk to the right group of people, we can have a better job. So that was one of the things. Thank you.
Phil?
Turn it off for me, thanks. Good morning, Phil Kerber. I'm a senior vice president with Whiting Turner. One kind of depressing part about that slide was realizing how many lucky people on there are now retired.
I thought the same thing.
Which also makes me realize where I'm at in my career, which is close. So my experience and why I thought Cogence made sense and was one of those initiatives that crosses our desks that actually I thought had value was kind of a very similar experience to what Pam was saying earlier. I went through some of my early projects, kind of the typical conventional project delivery, and then I got involved with some projects at the Cleveland Clinic. And Penn Wolf and Ron Lawson were really leaders in seeing that they had some failed projects. They had attributed that to failure in behaviors, and so they really started driving the fact that behavior could have influence on outcomes. So early on, we went through some of those projects and kind of started to work through some of those, concepts on how to do better partnering and teaming on projects and change behaviors. Then I had the chance to come down to Columbus, actually, and do a very progressive design build delivery down here in this market. And that team was everything you would write as far as what you would expect from good behavior: partnering, living together, co-locating. I mean, you can name it, right? All of the cliche buzzwords for what would lead to good delivery, this team had. And they did have great outcomes. We met every metric, beat every metric, schedule, budget. And probably the most important thing was we had a great time doing it. Like, we were happy. And I know we all talk about we don't get to have the kind of the research methodology of doing the same project in two different ways to finding out which outcome really works. It's all kind of anecdotal. But I got about the closest opportunity to do that. We took that exact same design build team and we went to another client to try to do a very similar, very challenging project. That client had a different approach to what they wanted to generate as far as project culture. And so we went kind of back to the old siloed approach. We went back to the finger pointing. We went back to the destructive behaviors. The job never went anywhere. It was a failure. We were miserable. And the job just never materialized. So I got to see it firsthand, the fact that the behaviors, A, did produce good outcomes, and B, nobody wanted to live like that. So I knew as kind of a whole that the industry had to do better. We can do better. I got a phone call one day, and there was this opportunity to join this group to try to really, dissect that and dig deeper into it. So I was hooked immediately. But then the one thing that, again, we always say it's really hard to find quantitative research that proves this. Paula brought a study that I think Excel had done at the time. I don't know who it is now. But it was everything you would want to see from quantitative assessments of all of the claims and lawsuits and all of that went through the industry. And at the end of the day, there was clear data that behaviors were the leading driver to when things went bad, right? So at the end of the day, that's really what brought me into the table. Great dialogues, the risk mitigation versus risk shifting, all of these, as you guys were talking, I'm like having all these flashbacks of great memories. So really, really great experience.
Great, awesome. And so what is Cogence, right? Cogence is a forum for discussion. These are some photos from back in 2016 of our original meetings. We are a forum for discussion, and talk isn't cheap. We've developed some great cross-industry relationships, which has brought strong value. Many people are like, prove it to me, show it to me, I need this resource, I need this resource. We know that. It's part of the reason we're here, to evolve, to develop those resources. But most importantly, I want you to spend your time today evolving the relationships that you've had with cross-industry colleagues. Because this is one of the very few places where we're all together. Jeff Applebaum will close us out tomorrow, and I remember one time he said to me, I feel like I'm welcome here. You know, when is the lawyer, one of the top litigation attorneys in the country, comfortable in the room? He is here, and we're happy you're here, Jeff. Armando, share a story about a cross-industry relationship that you've benefited from.
So, Jim Cicero, who's not here today, when we were having the risk discussion, I approached him and I asked him, I says, listen, why are you guys always fighting the change orders so hard? Right? And he looked at me and he says, because a lot of times I'm paying for them. And that just rang a bell that I never understood. I said,
And hold on 1 second. Jim Cicero, president, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, engineering firm. Armando,
yeah.
electrical trade contract.
Yeah, exactly. So we're having this conversation. He says, hey, my deductible was really high, and I'm doing a job for $40,000. You want to change it for $50,000. My deductible is $100,000. I don't want to do this for free. So that's when I understood that there need to be a lot of conversations through the processes, because as there is risk on projects, there's also opportunities. And identifying the opportunities together can help us do a better service for the owner while mitigating a lot of those risks. So that was a great conversation. It was an aha moment for me. And I think we've worked really well with Karpinski now in those activities. So
Great. You know, when we were preparing for this, Jared Klanick, who you will all meet, said to me the other day, he said, essentially what you're saying is cooperation is better than competition. And that's true. When we all want to succeed together, we do great things together. Our businesses also become stronger as a result of knowing and understanding and appreciating these cross-industry relationships. So our mission here is to develop best practices and improve outcomes. Phil, how have you incorporated Cogence principles into your business?
So I think at the end of the day, the thing about Cogence, which was kind of what drove me to the roundtables and the value was, again, as Armando mentioned, there was partners, right? And the partners, we really set a high goal as far as who would be at that roundtable. So you were sitting at the table with folks that were operational leads, that understood the risk, that understood the business, that could very clearly articulate what their risks were, what would make the relationships better, the cooperation better. And then you also had the folks in the room that were able to make change in the industry. And that was really important to us when we set up and we started. So that was great, because now you've got these voices. You're not just listening to rhetoric. You're not just listening to ideas. It was really a challenge every day about, all right, how are we taking this back? How do you actually go back and deliver it? It's still a challenge. Like you said, there's a very intentional effort that has to be made. We drive hard in all of our upcoming leaders that there's value in this, but our industry is challenging, and right now the workload and the demand, there's not always a lot of time to step back and pause and try to say, okay, can we do this a little bit differently? I mean, how many times do we get the cut and paste RFPs from whoever, from the CM, from whatever? Half the words are wrong. They don't have the right project in it, et cetera. The demand is tough, right? And so it's I think the biggest thing we can do, and what we've tried to do multiple times, is just continue to get everybody to pause for a second. There's the whole go slow to go fast mantra, and there's value in that, right? But that's hard. That's really hard. It takes time. It takes commitment. It's an intentional effort. And you just got to keep driving that mindset of stop and take a second to try to see if there's a different way to do this.
Apparently, are we not?
Apparently, I'm done.
You are done.
That was way too much. I want to add one more thing.
Yes.
Because one of the
Nobody's
things that Phil mentioned, and I think is very important to the success of Cogence was
It was bad.
we became resources for each other through this entire process. I remember going to your office and talking about a presentation on how we were affected, and I remember some of your people coming to my office, because what we wanted to do, we wanted to take the culture, not just us and learning it, but taking it back all the way to everyone in our office. So I thought that becoming a resource for each other was critical to the success.
Hey, I think I was there that day.
Yes, you were.
Let's hear what Jim Cicero has to say about Cogence.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Cicero, one of the founding board members of the Cogence Alliance, president of Kerber Engineering. My personal connection with Cogence really started when the board, the people in front of you, told me about their vision for this group. Their vision was how they wanted to make the industry better. I said, as soon as I heard that, sign me up. And if you think about it, before collaborative project delivery was in place in our industry, we all spent time in our silos defending our turf. And as engineers, that meant we were protecting our drawings from RFIs, change orders, and other errors and omissions. By following the Cogence Alliance principles, at the end of a project, instead of us defending our turf, the project team would come together, we'd have drinks together, and we'd celebrate great project outcomes. That's the great thing about the Cogence Alliance. At Kerber Engineering, years ago, we were having production efficiency issues. And we wanted to say, okay, how can we do this better? And so where did we look? We looked for the Cogence principles. We gathered everyone that was related to production in the same room. So it was our project engineers, our project managers, our Revit team members, and we said, what are all the risks that we're dealing with as we go through production on a project? We threw all those on the board, and then we said, okay, how can we mitigate those risks? And we came up with some great ideas, and people started stepping forward by saying, you know what, if I change the way I do my process and just add a little bit more to my day, I understand that I'm making it more effective for the company. So by the staff creating that empathy for one another really changed how we produce projects. And in the end, it created a culture of teamwork and collaboration, which is now the foundation of Kerber Engineering and how we do projects. What it really did is it made it fun in how we engineer projects. So my fellow Cogenters, enjoy the town hall, embrace the Cogence principles, but most of all, go out there and have fun changing the industry. Thanks.
Awesome. So that's how we started, and we really felt it was important to bring a little bit of that history as we spend the rest of the day evolving and talking about the future. I start every Cogence meeting with the mission and reminding everybody why we're here. Cogence is Latin, and it means to drive together, thinking that is well organized. The purpose of our alliance is to bring all industry stakeholders together, to be advocates and resources for improved project delivery. So, with that, I'd like to introduce the new president of the Cogence board, Scott Wagner. And in Northeast Ohio, we have a new president, Bob Hager. Here in Central Ohio, Jennifer Sun is our president. And our newest chapter in Southwest Ohio, Alex Janoski. Scott, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, all of our founders of Cogence. You know, I think in an election year, we could all use Cogence across Washington and the country, not just our industry. But, you know, I just want to take a moment. Thank goodness we didn't have term limits. Pam, for the almost 10 years leading Cogence, has been incredible. So I don't think we'd be anywhere where we are today without Pam's leadership. So thank you, Pam. Round of applause for Pam. So I guess for the founders, you know, when you're the 14 or so in the room starting out Cogence, where did you envision it being? Did you envision it being where we are today? You know, almost 10 years later, we're in 3 chapters. We have a national board and
Full-time executive
full-time
director.
executive director, Kevin Thompson in the back. Let's give Kevin appreciation as well. So I guess where did you envision, and you know, where do you see us today?
Actually, I thought we're right where we want to be. We actually talked about getting out of Ohio and doing Pittsburgh. We talked about nationally. I mean, who knows where it'll go? The whole key in our minds was just the collaborative way is the better way. Regardless of what your contract says, you still could work collaboratively. So there was really nothing stopping us.
Yeah, exactly. I think when we started, we wanted to grow regionally and then nationally. The biggest challenge, though, at the beginning was we wanted to make sure that we were represented equally. So that was a challenge, maintaining the same amount of people from each group. The only group that could be bigger was the owners group. And so we limited the number of partners at the beginning. So we wanted to limit the number of partners but continue to grow. So yeah, I think we've done a tremendous job to do that.
I think we've learned a lot too on the journey, right? So we've tried to inject in some different chapters. I think we've recognized that this isn't a common theme. Cogence isn't the same to every market. Every market is different. The concept and the construct behind it, the mission statement is the same. It's got value, but it has to be done differently in each market. So, you know, we had some trips early on where we tried to go into northwestern Ohio and get some chapters, and again, had some traction issues. And so I think the one thing that the team has done really well, and the current leaders, is really let Cogence be what it needs to be for each market. I think that's extremely important. It doesn't have to be 100 people in some markets. It can be 15 in some markets. It can be 200. Each session, again, the concept of what you talk about is there, but how you do it, how you deliver it, that's unique to each market. I think that's probably the one lesson we learned over the years that I think the team has done really, really well in allowing, which will allow us to grow more, right? And allow the message. The most important thing is forget about how big it gets. It's just as long as we're having impact in the markets that we're in, and that'll keep working its way across. And I think that's what's been valuable.
Awesome. And I would say when you're asked to be involved, make sure it's something that you love to do, because we will give 110% if it's something that we're strong about, something that we believe in, something that we can grow, learn, and have fun with. We like to have fun here.